From the dawn of time, women have exchanged stories as a way of expressing themselves, passing on traditions, developing meaningful relationships, lifting each other up in times of darkness, and supporting each member of their community. Each member emerges, growing bigger, stronger, more powerful.
That's what she said.
Since 2013, That's What She Said has been a platform for local women to come together to support each other and exchange stories. Some will make you belly laugh, some will make you ugly cry, and everything in between. We have loved being a part of each of your stories as you have been a part of ours. And because there are so many amazing stories to tell, we decided to continue the conversation throughout the year by inviting you all to join us each and every week at That's What She Said, the web series, our weekly talk show, where we get to feature more women in our community through laughter, tears, and of course, coffee. We welcome you and thank you for being a part of our show tonight and part of the history of That's What She Said. Now, please welcome your host for tonight's show, Carrie Rosso.
Welcome to That's What She Said. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to our presenting sponsor, Christie Clinic. So, 2016 is a pretty big year for women, right? Right? No matter where you are on the political spectrum, we can all agree that it's a big deal, that 2016 is going to have a huge impact on our culture. Now that Brangelina is broken up. I kid. Seriously, next month, history really will be made. When we go to cast our vote for the next president of the United States, for the first time ever, a woman's name will be on that ballot. But I have to tell you, I feel like I've been a little robbed of this experience. I always thought if this day ever arrived, I envisioned spending it with my two girls and passing down my words of wisdom. And I never, at any time, when I had that fantasy, did I envision that it would go like, "Gather round, young daughters." And yes, sweetheart, her opponent did say, grab them by the...
Please stop. Carrie, look, we talked about this. I thought we agreed there would be no politics in the show tonight. And I can't believe you brought up Brangelina. You know how upset that makes me.
I'm sorry, I get carried away. I just get so carried away. But how could we have a show about empowering women a month from the election and not even acknowledge it?
I know, I agree, it's exciting. But women don't need a national stage to empower each other. In fact, isn't it the women in your everyday lives who make the most impact? You know the women I'm talking about, right? It's the friend who holds your hand on the last day of chemo.
Or it's the woman who takes your carpool duty while an ER doc is removing a Lego from your child's sinus cavity.
It's your neighbor who shows up at your door with a casserole and a bottle of wine and says, "I heard the news," or "I heard the news."
Or it's your friend who holds your hair back when you've been overserved.
It's your friend who cheers the loudest as you're crossing that 5K finish line, even if you're walking.
It counts. Or it's your girlfriend who holds up your wedding dress when you have to
pee, Carrie. When you have to pee. It's your BFF who lives 2,000 miles away and who still knows exactly what to say every time you call.
It's my sisters. My sisters who are the gatekeepers of all of my stories.
Because we all have a story. And right now, there are 7 amazing women waiting backstage to come out here and share their stories with all of you. So let's get this party started.
Please welcome your 2016 That's What She Said speakers.
My name is Mary, and I'm an addict. But don't worry, I'm in recovery, not gonna steal your stuff. As an addict, there are big chunks of my past that are super fuzzy, or that I simply don't remember. But see, that was kind of the point. I couldn't handle life the way that everyone else seemed to handle life. It was too intense for me. Or maybe I'm just too sensitive. Regardless, when faced with any sort of emotion, good, bad, stressful, sorrow, love, any, I couldn't handle it. So I had to escape. And that's what addiction is. It's escapism taken to the extreme. So when first brainstorming about this little exercise, I had planned on telling you all the story of my last drunk, when I assaulted someone with a salsa jar. But then I thought maybe that's not super relatable to the general public, for good reason, yeah. So I'll just save that one for the after party. On occasion, upon learning I'm an addict, someone will ask me, "What's your drug of choice?" The answer is simple. What do you got? You see, in my active addiction, I would take anything I could get my hands on to take the edge off and give me a false, though comforting sense of security. Uppers, downers, alcohol, street drugs, food, men, exercise, clothes. Whatever I think will distract me from the way that I'm feeling, I'm game to try. And that absolutely 100% includes good feelings too. I can't handle good, just like I can't handle bad. And it may actually be worse. Good stuff is scary. Good stuff can be ripped away. Good stuff is a tease. So when too much good comes into my life, I have a tendency to freak out. And yes, I know that doesn't make any sense, but not everything in life does. Shortly after I got sober from drugs and alcohol, I began dating an amazing man. Today, I'm lucky enough to be able to call him my husband, but at the time, he was just my super hot, 10 years younger than me, boyfriend. I know. Well, early sobriety is a lot like trying to get over any other sickness. It's not an immediate stop using and suddenly you're cured type of thing. There is definitely a recuperation period. Kind of like if you've had the stomach flu for the past 15 years, it's probably going to take at least a long weekend before you feel like eating chili cheese dogs and going on the tilt-a-whirl again. That's what early sobriety's like. It's a healing time. And, at least for me, it took a while before I could get my strength back up to a point where I could manage my emotions in any sort of reasonable way. Now, obviously, when dealing with major addiction, the goal is to cut out the most harmful and volatile components first, and then you can work your way through the less dangerous ones. So drugs, alcohol, and self-harm were the first to go, leaving me with a nice little menagerie of lesser, though still totally necessary evils. Disordered eating actually popped up big time for me during this period. That's a pretty broad description, I know, but it's a pretty broad problem. I'll just say I was desperately trying to control my intake, was unable to do so, and would feel extreme guilt and shame when I failed. So basically the exact same cycle as any addiction. One day, I was home alone in the house that I shared with my then boyfriend, and I decided, very innocently, that I wanted to have a small bowl of ice cream as a treat, to kind of reward myself and to prove that I could have a small bowl of ice cream alone in the middle of the afternoon, and that there was nothing wrong with that. And that may be true for others, but for me, at that early stage of my recovery, it was likely going to be impossible. Why? Because ice cream makes me feel good, so I will use it until I feel horrible. What happened is I had a single, small, socially acceptable bowl of ice cream. But then I wanted another. And hey, I mean, that's still normal, right? I mean, doesn't anyone that has a little bit of ice cream actually kind of wish they had more than just a little? So I had another. And another. And then I just stopped messing around with the bowl altogether and went straight to town. Before I knew what had happened, I had eaten almost the entire half gallon. But then the shame and fear set in. And I knew my super cute boyfriend was going to come home and see that I had eaten all of the ice cream and would probably break up with me because I was gross and didn't know how to share. So I did what anyone would do in that situation. First, I consciously said, screw it, the damage is done, and polished off the rest of the carton. Then I put the empty carton in a plastic bag, got in the car, drove to the store, threw it away, went inside and purchased the exact same brand and flavor of ice cream, drove back home, and ate exactly one small bowl out of the new carton to appear normal. And I felt better, but not really. My addiction felt secure, so that's a good thing. But I've just eaten an entire half gallon of ice cream, and I feel really gross about it. And shockingly, I also have a pretty bad stomach ache. Now, the plan was to not even say anything at all when my boyfriend got home, because it is so totally normal to have a small bowl of ice cream alone in the middle of the afternoon. And if you look at the carton in the freezer, it is very clear that that is all I had. But for some reason, when he got home, I couldn't lie to him, not even through omission, which I'll tell you is a testament to him, not me, because I have lied to a bunch of people in my life to cover my addiction and not felt bad about it in the slightest. So when he walked in the front door and said, "Hi, how was your day?" the very first words out of my mouth were, "There's a carton of ice cream in the freezer, but it's not the same carton of ice cream that was in there before." It was a little awkward. So after I told him everything, probably in way more detail than was really necessary, especially since I'm trying to stem the appearance of crazy here, all he said was, "I'm sorry you felt like you needed to do that." And it hit me, though certainly not for the last time. Who it was, I was really hurting.
Hey everyone. This is kind of a big day for me. I mean, here I am on stage, and it also just happens to be my birthday. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, I've never really had an issue with aging. I don't mind getting older because, hey, it's a lot better than the alternative, right? So, before I tell you how old I am, I wanted to share some things I've learned on my journey to middle age. So a few years ago, I decided it was time to do some soul searching. So I took a long look at myself in the mirror and noticed a giant hair growing out of my chin. I pulled that sucker out, and then I realized that I was spending way too much time and energy focusing on things that just didn't matter, like what people thought of me and the dreaded C word. Not that C word. I'm talking about comparison. Yes, I was the queen of comparison. I spent a lot of time comparing myself and my life to everyone else. Was I smart enough? Was I successful enough? Was I fit enough? Did I have enough kids? Should I have a bigger house? Go on more vacations? And on and on and on. It was like I was measuring my own success with other people's yardsticks, and I never felt like I was enough. And on top of that, I would look at my own life, which was pretty good, great husband, kids, good job, and ask myself, what the heck is wrong with you? Why aren't you happy with what you have? And I'll tell you what, Facebook does not help. You know, looking at someone's great vacation pictures when you're not feeling that hot about yourself is not going to get you anywhere. You know what, though? I was so tired of feeling this way. I wanted to change. And I decided to work on myself from the inside out. So I started reading some books on the subject, and there's some really good ones out there if you need some advice. And I started meditating, and that helped me to see things in a whole new perspective. And I developed a mantra. Yes, a mantra. Want what you have, and you'll have what you want. You know what? It works, because I became so much more content with my life. And I was able to look at my own accomplishments and see that not only was I enough, but I was pretty badass. Not really. So that brings me to my next discovery of middle age. So now that I let go of comparison, I was able to start saying yes to things that were a little bit outside of my comfort zone, like this. And the time I taught yoga to football players. So some of you know I'm a yoga instructor. Well, now you do. And a few years back, I was asked to teach yoga to the U of I football team for balance and flexibility and all that stuff. Well, I thought no big deal. I mean, I've been teaching yoga for a long time, and how much different could it be? Well, these were college football players. But there I was, middle-aged mom in my yoga pants, teaching the entire U of I football team how to do downward facing dog. And that is a yoga pose. And for the first time in my life, I actually felt petite. You tall girls know what I'm talking about, right? Oh, and then there was Haiti. Going on a mission trip to Haiti was definitely outside of my comfort zone. But when Carol asked me if I wanted to go on the soul journey, of course I said yes. How could I turn that down? And then she asked me what my biggest concern about going to Haiti was. Now, I could have said getting a tropical disease or getting mugged in a third world country. But I said, you know, Carol, my biggest concern is sharing a bathroom with 12 women for an entire week. Yeah, pretty shallow, right? But you know what? That wasn't bad at all because we became really close on that trip. And yes, it was physically and emotionally challenging, but it was also life-changing because I will never forget the people I met in Haiti. The beautiful orphans, the wonderful volunteers. And if I hadn't said yes to Haiti, I never would have experienced that. And my heart isn't Haiti. Haiti needs us. And then about 9 months ago, I decided I was a writer, and I started a blog called about life in the middle years. And it's not serious journalism. It's just me blogging about stuff like what I had for breakfast or walking my dog or yoga or whatever. But you know what? It's been a great creative outlet for me because every time I post a blog, it's like I've given birth to a whole new idea without the labor pains. And I'm hoping that maybe it'll inspire other people to, go for it and try new things too, because that's the beauty of saying yes. It opens the door to living a fulfilling life at all stages, because we never know what's around the corner. Like most of you, I've had loss. 25 years ago, I lost my oldest brother in a plane crash. Joe was an amazing, talented man who lived every minute of his life to the fullest. And then over the years, I've lost many friends and acquaintances to accidents and illnesses, too young as well. And now I'm gradually losing my father to Alzheimer's, and they say it's the longest goodbye. So what have I learned from all this? Well, the importance of embracing all the good things in life when they happen. The value of saying yes to new things, no matter if they're scary, and to living a life beyond comparison. Now, I'm 53 years old today. Thank you. And if you ask me, life just keeps getting better and better because it is what we make of it. Namaste.
Too. I love you too. So there I was, getting ready to leave for college. My parents had been saving for this moment since before I was even born. I had made it through those horrifying ACTs. I was going to be getting away from my bratty little sisters, whom I love very, very much. And I was going to be living with some of my best friends. My life was about to start. But my college experience only lasted for 2 months. I soon found myself living a complete nightmare. I was 17. He was 32. I was traumatized and changed forever by the beatings I took and the emotional torture I endured at the hands of a boyfriend. I heard every day that I was a bitch, a slut, worthless. At least he didn't call me fat because that would have really pissed me off. How in the hell did I get myself in a situation like this? I never once saw my dad hit my mom. I never even heard him raise his voice at her. As a matter of fact, my upbringing was as pretty close to perfect as possible. But no matter how bad the abuse got, I wouldn't leave. I would go back and take more, rinse and repeat. And the abuse did get much, much worse. I'm not going to go there with you guys just yet, but eventually you'll get the picture. I was pregnant at 18, no prenatal care, and living in an apartment in the middle of July in 100-degree weather with no air conditioning and no TV, because that's absolutely what's important here, was that I didn't have a TV to watch at the time. All I had to eat was rice and corn. I'm clearly eating way more than that now, so don't feel too sorry for me. I had my first baby boy just after my 19th birthday. Not long after bringing him home, I found myself standing outside of our apartment in the snow during a blizzard in only a ripped t-shirt and underwear. Wet, cold, bleeding, bruised. His spit dripping down my face. my baby crying in my arms. The door was locked. We weren't being allowed back in. The door was locked. We weren't being allowed back in. I was completely helpless. Not knowing what else to do, I knocked on the neighbor's door. Karen answered immediately. I had never spoken, only seen her, as I wasn't allowed to look at or talk to anybody. She let us in and gave us some blankets so we could get warm. My son and I were crying. We were trembling and terrified. I didn't have to say a word. She already knew. She comforted me and told me to get help, to leave and get somewhere safe. This would be my life if I didn't. What kind of man could do this to a woman and child? Well, I'm going to tell you what kind of man. The kind of man who, on my birthday, borrowed $20 from me, walked down the street to Walgreens, bought me a generic frickin' curling iron, brought it back, handed it to me, still in the plastic Walgreens bag, with the receipt still inside. Didn't even give me the change. Loser. That's the kind of man I would be spending my life with. I vividly remember the day I finally kicked him out. He took our clothes, beds, my underwear, everything. I didn't care. My son and I were free from torture, free to live the way we wanted to live. I remember the moment I was able to tell my mom that this was done. It was all over, and seriously this time. She cried, I cried. It was so liberating. My sister Nikki and I drove to St. Louis to pick up a friend of hers from the airport with Independent Women by Destiny's Child blaring on repeat almost the entire way there. I was Beyonce. I started calling my friends one by one with an apology. I had a voice. I never once looked back after that day. I eventually figured out a way to go back to college. Now, it wasn't that college experience that 17-year-old girl had dreamed of. I would ride the MTD to Parkland every day. I remember waiting at a bus stop in Savoy, and I saw a man walking his dog. That man, a complete stranger, came up to me and asked me where I was going. When I told him, he said, "Stay in school. Don't quit. No matter how tough it gets, never give up." And I didn't. And do you know who that man was? Former U of I men's basketball coach Lou Henson. So I guess you could say we're totally best friends now. It was a Friday afternoon when I received a phone call from the Chancellor Hotel offering me a job in their sales office making a whopping $12,000 a year. Felt like Christmas. I immediately started calling daycares. I made call after call after call. And after being turned away from nearly every daycare in town, a lady named Barb, who owned a really small daycare on Mattis, called me back. I said, "Look, I'm a single mom. I just got a job and I start on Monday. I won't have any money until my first paycheck. She said, Stacy, don't worry about it. Bring him in on Monday and pay me when you can. So here's the deal. Every single one of us gets through the tough times because there is someone there standing in the gap to help us close it. Lots of people want to ride with you in the limo, but what you want is someone that will take the bus with you when that limo breaks down. We all have a story, and many of us walk down the hardest path possible, and that's because it's just the way life is. It ain't all sunshine and rainbows, right? People are put in our lives for a reason. The heroes of my story have their own stories. My neighbor, Karen, who helped me, she shared with me on that fateful night that there was once a time in her life when she felt helpless and scared and afraid, just like me. Years later, I was picking up my son from school and I ran into her. I had the opportunity to thank her, to let her know that because she helped me, I made it out. I had survived. Karen Cottrell, who is here in the audience tonight, thank you. Thank you. That lady Barb I talked about at that really small daycare on Mattis. Barb Sullivan, the owner of Next Generation, thank you. By the way, I never did pay her on time, ever, and there is a really strong chance I still have an outstanding balance there with her. My parents are the true heroes in my story. Their door was always open. I could always count on them, and I still can. They are my angels. Mom and Dad, thank you. As I look back on all the different parts of my story, I don't always remember what people said to me, but I always remember how they made me feel. And I could tell this as a story of heroism, or I could tell it as a story filled with tragedy and defeat. It's actually both. It made me who I am, a survivor, a conqueror of obstacles, a fighter. And the fact that I was able to get out of this situation is a trophy that I will hold on the highest shelf. I am so very proud to share with you tonight that I have a loving, caring, kind, protective husband and 3 kids, all of whom are safe, and one even likes me. Life is about the journey, not so much the end result. It was Rocky Balboa who once said, "You, me, nobody is going to hit as hard as life, but it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward."